You know the scene. I mean, it's in basically every coming-of-age movie ever made.
Oh, yeah.
The car is packed to the gills, the trunk gets slammed shut, and there's that one singular, tearful hug in the driveway.
Right. The music swells.
Exactly. The kid gets in the car, drives off to college or whatever, and the parents just stand there, waving. Cut to black.
The quintessential letting go moment. It's so cinematic. It's decisive. It offers this really clear sense of closure,
Yeah.
a clean break.
The clean break, yeah. And I think we're all conditioned to believe that letting go in parenting is exactly that, a big, dramatic event.
A single moment.
A single moment. Before this, you're holding on. After this, you've let go. But we have a piece of writing today that just completely dismantles that idea.
It really does.
It suggests that if you're waiting for that movie moment in the driveway, you've actually missed the real work entirely.
It's a really profound essay. It's called Letting Go by the writer and philosopher Pedro Malha. And honestly, reading it felt like someone was articulating something I felt, but just never had the words for.
What's the core idea?
His central thesis is that letting go isn't a decision you make on a specific day. It's not an event. It is a gradual loosening.
Gradual loosening. Okay, that sounds a lot less romantic than the movie version.
Well, yeah,
It actually sounds kind of slow and painful.
it is, in a way. Malha argues that this process happens in fragments, often unnoticed, just threaded through ordinary days. It's all about the shift from holding to releasing. And he captures the specific, almost physical mechanics of it.
And he talks about this unspoken ache that comes with it. Not the grief of them leaving, but an ache that happens way, way before that. It's surprisingly specific.
It is.
So our mission for this deep dive is to explore that transition. How do you move from being the person who ensures their literal survival to the person who just watches?
And maybe more importantly, why does that shift feel so physically uncomfortable? Why does it feel so wrong?
Right. Okay, so let's get into the mechanics of this. Malha starts at the very beginning, the holding phase. And he's not speaking metaphorically here. He means literal physical holding.
Yeah, and this is crucial for context. If you don't understand the starting point, the ending just makes no sense. He describes early parenting as a state of total containment.
Total containment.
When a child arrives, their survival depends entirely on proximity.
Yeah.
You are their external brain, their external safety system. Malha writes that hands are used constantly, lifting, carrying, feeding, steadying.
I think anyone who's had a baby or a toddler knows exactly what that physical weight feels like.
Oh, yeah.
It's the dead weight of a sleeping kid on your shoulder, where you're just terrified to move a muscle. It's the repetitive motion of the spoon. It's that reflex where your arm shoots out across the passenger seat if you hit the brakes too hard. You're not just observing them, you are their physical infrastructure.
Precisely. You are the container.
Yeah.
And Malha makes the point that this holding isn't a choice. It's demanded by reality. You can't let go of a toddler running toward traffic.
Right, that's just
Exactly. So total containment is the baseline. We start at 100% holding. But, and this is where the pivot happens, Malha points out that the process of letting go actually begins way earlier than we think.
right in the middle of all that containment.
Right in the middle. It starts invisibly. It's not a decision you make. It's a reaction to their growth. He talks about these tiny microscopic releases.
So it's not dropping them off at a dorm.
No, it's a child sleeping a little longer in the early hours of the day, so you don't have to rush in immediately.
Or a grip loosening on your finger when they're learning to walk. Or that one step they take without falling.
He calls it a pattern where a hand hovers instead of touches.
Oh, that image really stuck with me, the hovering hand.
It's perfect, isn't it?
I can visualize that perfectly. You're at the playground, your kid is climbing something slightly too high, your hand is right there, maybe 3 inches from their back,
Ready to catch them?
ready to catch them, but there's this gap of air between you and them.
And that gap is everything. That gap is the beginning of the separation.
Yeah.
And Malha notes that this doesn't feel like letting go in the moment. It feels like hesitation. It feels like waiting. You aren't deciding to step back. You're just pausing to see if you're needed.
And when you realize you aren't, the hand just stays hovering.
Exactly.
That's the first crack in the dam. But then as they get older, this has to become more conscious. And this is where Malha redefines what letting go actually means.
Right.
I think a lot of people equate letting go with stepping back or doing less or, just checking out.
Or even abandonment. There's this fear that if I'm not holding on, I'm abandoning you.
Right. But Malha says absolutely not. He writes, it is not the same as withdrawal, absence, or abandonment. It is a change in shape.
That phrase, change in shape, that's the intellectual anchor of the whole essay.
A change in shape.
He argues that care doesn't vanish. It redistributes. Responsibility doesn't end. It just alters its form. You are moving from direct care to indirect care, from constant to selective.
Okay, but I have to be honest here. That shift is incredibly disorienting.
It is.
Because, and I think every parent feels this, your entire identity gets organized around being required. If I'm not directly doing something for you...
What am I even for?
Exactly. If I'm not tying the shoe or cutting the grapes or driving the car, am I still parenting you? It feels like a loss of job security.
That's the existential crisis right there.
Yeah.
But Mala brings in what he calls the intelligence of this process.
Yeah.
He says this isn't just some modern parenting philosophy. It's a structural reality.
That children need space.
They need space to encounter the world. They need to meet resistance.
They need to feel consequences.
Yes, without constant interception. Think about it physically. If you hold a child up all the time, their leg muscles never develop.
Sure.
The same is true emotionally and psychologically.
Yeah.
If you hold too much, you constrain movement. If you hold too little, you expose them to danger. Letting go is simply the adjustment that keeps the balance from collapsing. It's not emotional, it's structural.
Okay, so logically, I'm with you. Structural reality, balance, muscle development, that makes perfect sense. But emotionally, it's a wreck.
It's a total wreck.
And Mala identifies a very specific barrier to letting go. It's not just that we miss them being little, it's what he calls the attachment to usefulness.
This is such a sharp insight, and it's a hard one to hear. We are addicted to being useful. Being needed offers clarity.
It defines your day.
It totally defines your day. You wake up in the morning and you know exactly what your job is.
Yeah.
Fix the breakfast, find the shoes, sign the form. It gives shape to effort.
And when that starts to fade, when they can find their own shoes, Mala says something quiet opens up.
And that quiet isn't always peaceful. He describes it as an ache. Not because something has gone wrong, but because something familiar is loosening. Time returns to you, but it doesn't feel like a gift yet.
It feels empty.
Yes, empty.
I think this is where the essay gets really relatable and maybe a little uncomfortable, because that ache doesn't usually look like sadness.
No, it looks like annoyance.
Like nagging.
Precisely. Mala says this ache often hides behind irritation, over-involvement, or unnecessary correction. It appears as insistence.
Insistence. I feel personally attacked by that word.
I think we all do. It's the urge to manage what no longer needs managing.
So you find yourself in the morning routine. It's chaos. Everyone is rushing. And you're hovering over them, reminding them of things they already know.
Yeah.
Do you have your bag? Did you brush your teeth?
Is your homework in the folder? You're nitpicking how they're packing their bag.
And you tell yourself you're doing it to help them. I just don't want them to forget their math homework.
Right. But Mala suggests you aren't doing that because they need the help. They probably remember the homework. You're doing it because you need the role.
You need to be the manager of the morning.
You do. Ouch.
So I'm trying to squeeze into a space that has already shrunk.
Exactly. You're holding on out of an unacknowledged attachment to a role that used to matter.
Yeah.
And Malha points out that this strains the relationship, not because you care too much, but because the form of your care hasn't adjusted. You're trying to be a lifter for someone who is already walking.
That is a tough pill to swallow. To realize that your helpfulness might actually be about your own need to be valid, not their need for help.
It makes you question a lot. So how do we fix that? If we aren't supposed to intervene, what are we doing? Just standing there. That feels so passive.
Well, this is crucial. Malha distinguishes between active restraint and passive withdrawal. He says letting go is not the removal of concern.
It's not.
It is the acceptance that concern doesn't need to govern every single movement.
Restraintive intervention.
Yes. And he argues that this restraint is actually more demanding than taking action.
Wait, explain that. How is doing nothing harder than doing something? Doing something takes effort. Doing nothing is just sitting there.
Is it? Think about the mental and emotional discipline required. Action feels productive. Fixing the problem reduces your anxiety.
No, yeah.
If you see them struggling with a shoelace or a social situation or a difficult decision, your instinct is to jump in and smooth it out.
Which relieves my tension. Exactly. Restraint involves tolerating uncertainty. It involves watching them struggle, watching them maybe fail, and not jumping in. That is an incredibly active internal process.
So you're just vibrating with the effort of holding yourself back.
You really are. That's the blinkest moment for me. We think sitting on the couch while our kid struggles with a math problem is laziness. Mala is saying, no, if you are sweating internally because you want to help, but are holding yourself back because you know they need to solve it, that is high-effort parenting.
That's active restraint.
That is active restraint. It moves the parent from a position of control to a position of availability.
Okay, control versus availability.
Control seeks to reduce uncertainty by managing variables. Availability just remains present without eliminating the unpredictability. You're there, you're watching, but you aren't directing.
So you move from being the director to being the audience, or maybe the understudy.
Maybe the safety net. You're there if they fall, but you aren't catching them before they leap. You're the walls of the room, not the furniture they're bumping into.
Mala also lists some very specific things we lose. And it's not just the big stuff. He talks about the schedules that once worked and the shared routines that quietly defined connection.
Oh, that one hurts. The routines.
Yeah, it really does.
Think about the walk to school or the bedtime ritual or the way the afternoon used to flow. Those routines aren't just logistics. They are how we bonded.
They're the vessel for the relationship.
That's a great way to put it. When the kid starts walking to school alone or stays up later than you, we feel untethered.
And the information. He talks about letting go of being the first to know.
Oh, that's a massive shift. For years, you are the primary repository of their life. You know everything they ate, everyone they spoke to, every scrape on their knee.
You are the historian of their existence.
Yes. Then, suddenly, information moves elsewhere.
They tell a friend first, or a partner, or they just keep it to themselves.
Exactly. You become, as Malha puts it, just one listener among many. You're hearing about their day at the dinner table at the same time as their sibling, or maybe you don't hear about it until 3 days later.
That feels like a demotion.
It does.
It feels like you've been kicked out of the inner circle.
It feels like a loss of access. But Mala reminds us that connection remains, even if access diminishes. You have to learn to be okay with not knowing everything.
There's another layer to this loss that he touches on, which I think is maybe the deepest cut of all. It's letting go of the imagined future.
This is so deep. We all do this, consciously or not. Hopes form early, he says. We have these vague, unvoiced expectations for who our kids will be.
Sure.
Maybe we imagine them as athletes or scholars or just people who will live near us. We write a script for them before they can even talk.
And then they reveal themselves, and they go off script.
And they are who they are. As the child reveals their true self, those imagined paths, they fall away. Mala says this isn't necessarily disappointment, it's an adjustment. The future becomes less malleable.
It becomes specific. It's the difference between a blank canvas where anything is possible and a painting that is actually taking shape.
Yes.
You have to let go of the painting you thought you were making to see the one that's actually there.
And sometimes that specificity hits a hard boundary.
Yeah.
Mala talks about the moment a parent encounters a limit, a choice the child makes that cannot be redirected. A career choice, a partner, a lifestyle.
That is the ultimate test of letting go, right? When you realize your influence has an endpoint.
And Mala argues that resisting this creates strain, internally and relationally. If you try to force them back onto your imagined path, you break the connection. But acknowledging it, that allows a child to differentiate. It allows them to carry their own responsibility.
So if you never hit that boundary, they never fully arrive as themselves.
Exactly.
So we've talked about what the child gains: differentiation, responsibility, muscle mass. But what about the parent? Because Mala says something interesting about what happens when that narrowing of early parenthood starts to loosen.
He calls it the return of the self. In those early years of total containment, your identity narrows around function. You are a parent, first, second, and third.
Right.
Your hobbies, your friendships, your inner life, they all get put in storage.
But then, as the gripping loosens, the storage unit opens back up. Interests, relationships, inner spaces reappear.
Right. But, and this is so perceptive, he says this can feel undeserved or strangely empty at first.
Yeah, I get that. You sit down to read a book on a Saturday afternoon and you have this nagging guilt. Like, is it okay for me to do this for 3 hours? Should I be organizing something? Should I be checking on someone?
Exactly. It feels illicit. It's a rebalancing. You aren't reclaiming yourself in some triumphant way. You're just finding a new equilibrium.
And he links this to the passage of time.
He does. Time moves in one direction. Mala has this quote: "Holding on too tight freezes a moment that is already passing."
Letting go allows the relationship to move with time rather than against it. That is such a powerful image. If you don't let go, you're fighting the current. You're exhausting yourself, trying to swim upstream to a version of your child that doesn't exist anymore.
You're trying to parent a memory, not the person in front of you. And that's a tragedy for both of you.
He does acknowledge, though, that sometimes this isn't a slow, poetic process. We've been talking about the gradual loosening, but sometimes it's forced.
Yes. Illness, sudden separation, difficult circumstances. These moments are not romantic. They bring real strain and sorrow. But Maha insists that the structure is the same. Something must be released because it cannot be held. Recognition of that doesn't fix the pain. It doesn't make it easy. But it prevents the confusion from adding extra weight. It stops you from fighting reality on top of fighting the grief.
So assuming we aren't in a crisis and we're just navigating this gradual loosening, what is the final state? If we do this right, where do we land? Because it can't just be emptiness.
No, not at all. Mala describes the final state of care as watchfulness rather than action. It moves inward. It becomes a presence rather than an intervention.
And he uses a phrase here that I think sums up the entire deep dive. It's the phrase that I want to tattoo on my brain. He calls letting go an act of accuracy.
An act of accuracy.
Yeah.
I think this is the most important takeaway. Letting go isn't about loving them less. It isn't about giving up.
It's about what?
It is about accurately recognizing what is actually happening.
Seeing the reality.
Right. It's seeing the child as they are now, not as they were in the early hours of their life, and not as you imagine they would be. It reduces friction because you stop fighting the direction of change.
You're aligning your behavior with the truth of the situation.
Yes. That makes it sound so much more active and positive. It's not, I'm losing you.
It's, I see you.
Exactly. I see that you can tie your own shoes. I see that you can handle this conflict. I see that you are an adult.
And what happens to the love? Does it just sit there, unused?
No, it changes shape, too. He says love remains central, but it's no longer about containment. It allows the bond to endure without being rigid. It allows the love to breathe.
To breathe! That's a much better goal than closure.
It is. It's sustainable. It's a relationship that can last for 40 years instead of one that gets stuck in the first 18.
So to recap where we've been, we started with the misconception that letting go is a single moment in a driveway. We learned from Pedro Malha that it's actually a structural shift from direct holding to active restraint.
From touching to hovering, and eventually to just watching.
We face the ache of no longer being useful in the same way, and the temptation to manage things just to feel relevant.
And we realize that stepping back isn't passivity. It's a demanding discipline of availability. It's the hard work of tolerating uncertainty.
And finally, we landed on this idea of accuracy, that letting go is just the honest acknowledgement of who someone has become.
It's not a failure of the bond, it's the evidence of growth.
It's evidence that the holding worked. You held them so they could eventually stand.
Exactly, that was the whole point.
Before we wrap up, I want to leave you with a thought. We've been talking about parenting today because that's what the essay focuses on. But this concept of the act of accuracy, of acknowledging reality instead of fighting it, it feels universal. It feels like it applies to everything.
It really does. It's a framework for change.
So, here's the question for you. If letting go is simply acknowledging the reality of who someone has become or what a situation has turned into, where else in your life are you creating unnecessary friction? Is it in a friendship that has drifted apart, but you're still trying to force it into the shape it had 10 years ago? Is it a career path that doesn't fit you anymore? Is it a version of your own identity that you've outgrown? Where are you holding on to a version of reality that has already passed simply because you're afraid of the empty space that might open up if you let go?
That's the real work, isn't it? Recognizing what is rather than what was.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
See you next time.